The lore surrounding the witch trials of the 16th through 18th centuries is often shrouded in mystery and magic. In reality, witchcraft was, for the most part, not the reason that people were accused, tried, and executed. However, those accusing others found many reasons, most of them ridiculous, to accuse someone of witchcraft. Many of these reasons were beyond the accused's control, such as being born with a third nipple. Many others were just absurd, such as leaving old milk to spoil or slamming a door. No one was safe, but women, who made up 70% of all tried witches, were especially vulnerable and could be accused of just about anything. 20 people were executed in the 1692 Salem witch trials. Historians estimate that about 50,000 people, mostly women, were tried and executed in Europe for witchcraft between the 15th century and the 18th century. If you like true stories of the macabre, strange, and paranormal, then please click on that subscribe button and ring that notification bell so you can be notified every time a new episode of Grim Events is uploaded. Without further ado, I give you absurd reasons people were accused of being a witch. Number 1. Not hearing well enough. Rebecca Nurse was accused of witchcraft at the age of 71. Even the judge and jury doubted her guilt, since she had been a respected member of Salem for many decades and had 8 children, as well as many more grandchildren and great-grandchildren. During her trial, the girls who accused her would break into fits whenever Rebecca Nurse spoke or waved her hands. However, the judge still found her not guilty, which caused an uproar from spectators and the girls who were allegedly being bewitched. To clarify, Chief Justice Stoughton asked Rebecca Nurse a question about something she had said during her trial as an attempt to quell the hysterical crowd. She was partially deaf in her old age and didn't answer the question because she didn't hear it. The jury assumed it was a sign of her guilt, discussed her case again, and then found her guilty. Rebecca Nurse was excommunicated from Salem and publicly executed soon after. This outraged many of her friends and neighbors and was seen as the first spark to ignite doubt of the witch trial's legitimacy amongst the people of Salem. Number 2. Slamming the church door. Sarah Cloyce was not suspected of being a witch until her own sister was named guilty at her trial for witchcraft. When the verdict was announced, Sarah Cloyce marched out of the church and slammed the door behind her. What may seem like a common demonstration of angst among young people was seen by the Puritans of the 17th century as an obvious sign of witchcraft. Sarah Cloyce was immediately accused of conspiring with the devil. She was sent to jail with her 2 sisters, who were also accused of being witches, and awaited her sentence. Both her sisters were found guilty and executed, but Sarah Cloyce was eventually found innocent and released from jail. She spent the rest of her life working tirelessly to clear her sisters' names. She was ultimately successful. In 1712, 9 years after Rebecca died, both of Sarah's sisters were cleared of their charges. Number 3. Having a sour personality. When Rachel Clinton was 10 years old, her father died, leaving her mother with 5 young daughters to take care of. She didn't marry until she was 36, and only did so in the hopes of receiving some inheritance. Unfortunately, the man she married took her money, cheated on her with her maid, and then refused to support her financially. She was then forced to beg for money to survive. In 1692, many citizens of Salem accused her of being a witch because of her, quote, sour personality. After what Rachel Clinton went through, a sour personality seems perfectly understandable. She was found guilty, jailed, put in shackles, and was only to be released if someone paid her court fees and bail. She was finally released in 1693, only to die penniless and destitute on the streets a few years later. Rachel Clinton is one of the most tragic tales to come out of this bleak period of history, as someone who was truly failed by everyone around her. Number 4. Someone claiming a yellow bird is sucking your fingers. Martha Corey already had a controversial past long before the witch trials began. She allegedly had a mixed-race baby out of wedlock, which, unsurprisingly, was not well received by the 17th century Puritans. After raising the child in solitude, she married and had another child. When that husband died, she marries Giles Corey, another Salem character with a checkered past. Giles Corey had been tried for murder of one of his farmhands in the past, but that was really no problem in the eyes of the Salem courtroom. When Ann Putnam Jr. accused Martha Corey's spirit of visiting her in the middle of the night, however, Martha Corey was in trouble. Her official sentence could not be delivered until Monday, since Salem laws forbade working on Sundays. Martha Corey did as she always did on Sundays. She went to church. It was there that Abigail Williams claimed that she saw a yellow bird flying around Martha Corey, sucking her fingers and whispering in her ear. Reverend Deodant Lawson recalls the event in his book. In sermon time, when Goodwife Corey was present in the meeting house, Abigail Williams called out, "Look where Goodwife Corey sits on the beam, suckling her yellow bird betwixt her fingers." Ann Putnam, another afflicted girl, said there was a yellow bird sat on my hat as it hung on a pin in a pulpit, but those that were by restrained her from speaking aloud about it. This was the last straw for the people of Salem. Martha Corey was tried, found guilty, and executed. Number 5. Having a third nipple. Prosecutors of witches had a collective conniption over a third nipple, which they referred to as the witch's teat. They believed witches used this third nipple to feed their familiars. Moles, birthmarks, and other imperfections of the skin were also seen as the devil's mark, and could be enough of a reason to be accused of witchcraft. Having a third nipple happens in 1 out of every 200 women. Even Anne Boleyn had one, tying her to witchcraft, which was one of the many reasons that King Henry VIII gave her up for execution. When women heard rumors of witch trials, they would often cut off moles, birthmarks, or third nipples to avoid prosecution. Eventually, just having a scar was seen as the mark of witchcraft too. Number 6. Dressing in all black. Today, we may consider Bridget Bishop as having Gothic tendencies, but in 1692, she was considered a dangerous witch who had made a pact with the devil. She was the first person to be tried and executed during the 1692 Salem witch trials. The main point of contention was her all-black wardrobe. Along with her impeccable sense of style, Bridget Bishop has been married 3 times. Her first 2 husbands died. This wasn't that unusual during the time where infections from a scraped knee could prove fatal, but nevertheless, the people of Salem used it to further incriminate Bridget Bishop. Bridget Bishop became the first person in Salem to be tried and found guilty of witchcraft, and consequently was executed by hanging. Number 7. Laughing at how stupid the witch trials were. Susanna Martin, like many others accused during the Salem witch trials, had a reputation and past convictions. Also similar to many of the convicted, family disputes over inheritance and land led to the legal troubles and made her an easy target during the 1692 trials. The girls who were afflicted by witchcraft, Mary Walcott, Abigail Williams, and Ann Putnam Jr., and Mercy Lewis, quickly pointed the finger at Susanna Martin. Martin found the accusation so absurd she could not help but laugh on trial. In July of 1692, Susanna Martin was executed by hanging alongside Rebecca Nurse, Sarah Good, Elizabeth Howe, and Sarah Wilds. Number 8. Accidentally selling spoiled milk and butter. Wilmot Red, also known as Old Mammy Red, lived in Marblehead, Massachusetts, and was the only person to get tried and executed for witchcraft outside of Salem during the 1692 trials. She was known by her neighbors as somewhat of a grumpy old woman, and rumors spread about her evil looks that could spoil milk. Wilmot Red's husband made a small wage. So she turned to selling butter and milk for some extra income. Perhaps from carelessness or forgetfulness from her old age, some of the milk and butter she sold was sour. This left a literal and figurative bad taste in her neighbors' mouths, further cementing her bad reputation and making her an easy target. Wilmot Red was within the last group of people to be executed for witchcraft during the Salem trials in September of 1692. Number 9. Being too strong. George Burroughs already had bad blood with Salem before the witch hysteria of 1692. He was a Christian minister assigned to lead the Salem Village Church in 1680. The previous minister had left his post because the people of Salem refused to pay his wages, and it didn't take long for George Burroughs to encounter the same problem. When his wife died in 1681, he had to take out a loan from John Putnam for the funeral expenses. After 2 years, he was tired of the people of Salem refusing to pay him, so he went to the village to resign. At that time, John Putnam suddenly decided to arrest him for not paying him back for his wife's funeral a year prior. As was the nature of Puritan Salem, gossip quickly spread about George Burroughs, even though neighbors helped pay his debts to get him out of jail. A decade later, when the people of Salem were being interrogated for names of potential witches, those rumors reared their ugly heads. In 1692, George Burroughs was issued an arrest warrant in his new home in Portsmouth, Maine. On his way to Salem, a storm struck and spooked many of the horses, but Burroughs didn't get injured, which was considered a sign of his affiliation with the devil. Burroughs also made the mistake of mentioning that he had a toad infestation at his new home, another sign of witchcraft. Above all, George Burroughs was accused of having superhuman strength by 9 citizens of Salem. Reverend Cotton Mather wrote about the account on trial. He was accused by 9 persons for extraordinary lifting, as such feat of strength could not be done without a diabolical assistance. Many of the accusers said they commonly heard George Burroughs bragging about his strength. Totally not normal male behavior. Okie dokie. Mercy Lewis even claimed that Burroughs carried her up a mountain to show her the kingdom of heaven and earth. Another witness claimed they saw him stick his finger in a barrel of cider and lift it above his head. Because of the overwhelming evidence of George Burroughs' affiliation with black magic, he was executed by hanging in the public gallows. Number 10. Talking to yourself. Sarah Good was accused of witchcraft for the simple reason that she was spotted around town quietly talking to herself under her breath. Sarah Good was pregnant at the time of her trial but was still found guilty. She was forced to wait out the rest of her pregnancy in jail. As soon as she gave birth, she was sentenced to death by hanging. Her last words were directed towards the town's judge, Reverend Nicholas Noyes. She said, "You're a liar. I am no more a witch than you are a wizard. If you take my life away, God will give you blood to drink." Legend says that when Nicholas Noyes died 25 years later of a brain hemorrhage, he coughed up his own blood and drowned, leading some to suspect that Sarah Good actually had some witchcraft up her sleeve. Number 11. Getting mad at someone who then gets hurt or sick. By the time the hysteria of 1692 came to a head, Elizabeth Howe had already been accused of witchcraft once before. In 1682, Elizabeth Howe had a disagreement with her neighbors, the Pursleys. Shortly after, their daughter began having seizures and feeling as if she was pricked by pins. Anger preceding mischief, or someone experiencing misfortune after a person gets in a fight with them, was commonly used as a grounds to accuse someone of witchcraft. After Howe's initial accusation in 1682, she was found not guilty, but her reputation was tarnished. When the hysteria of 1692 came about, Elizabeth Howe was once again accused of bewitching the young girls of Salem. The second time around, Elizabeth Howe was found guilty and sentenced to death by public hanging. Well, there you have it. 11 of the most absurd reasons that people were accused of being witches. Yeah, after reading through this list, considering that I wear black a lot, I talk to myself, and I laugh at stupid people, I would definitely have been killed as a witch back then. So tell me, what do you guys think about this craziness? Leave your thoughts and comments below. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.